The sun sets slowly behind the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Shadows stretch across the desert, deepening the silence around Taos, New Mexico. Dust drifts across empty streets. Adobe houses sit quietly, their flat rooftops glowing faintly in the last light. The town appears ordinary, peaceful, timeless, but not all is as it seems. Beneath the calm, some hear a sound that cannot be seen, cannot be measured, cannot be explained. A low-frequency hum, steady yet inconsistent, threading through walls, floors, and even the air itself. Some perceive it only at night. Others feel it as a vibration in their chest, a pressure behind the eyes. For those who hear it, there is no ignoring it. The first accounts appeared in the early 1990s. Residents described sleepless nights, headaches, and an unshakable sense of tension. Attempts to trace the source, machinery, traffic, natural phenomena proved futile. Instruments picked up nothing. The sound seemed to exist outside measurement, outside explanation. Scientists would later call it an acoustic anomaly, a phenomenon that challenges the limits of perception. Psychologists considered tinnitus, mass suggestion, or heightened sensitivity to environmental noise. But the testimony was consistent, a sound that some could hear, that some could not, yet it shaped daily life in profound ways. At first, the hum was dismissed. At first, people questioned their own senses, and yet for some families in Taos, it became impossible to ignore. Kitchens, bedrooms, and quiet living rooms became arenas where an unseen frequency persisted, subtle, unyielding, and inexplicable. This is not folklore. It is not legend. It is a phenomenon documented over decades, measured and studied, yet resisting every attempt at understanding. In Taos, the ordinary is interrupted by the imperceptible. Life carries on above ground but below, in the vibrations and frequencies that escape detection. The town is never fully silent. This is the beginning of the story of the Taos Hum, a story of perception, persistence, and the limits of what we can measure. The first reports, early 1990s. By the early 1990s, the hum had begun to make itself known across Taos in ways that could no longer be ignored. The first reports were subtle. A low vibration noticed in homes along the Rio Grande Boulevard, faint pulses at night when the desert was otherwise still. Residents initially assumed it was mechanical, an air conditioning unit, a nearby generator, or the occasional distant traffic. But it persisted. In the winter of 1991, Martha Lopez, a longtime resident of northern Taos, began recording her experiences in a journal. She described it as a constant low vibration that never stops, like the pulse of the earth itself. Her husband, initially skeptical, dismissed it as imagination. Yet by the following months, the sound had begun to affect him as well, disturbing his sleep and focus at work. Across town, other families reported similar experiences. Some noticed it only at night. Others felt it during the day while in quiet spaces, bedrooms, offices, or empty classrooms. Teachers at Taos Elementary School mentioned a handful of students who became irritable, distracted, or complained of headaches, particularly on nights following strong hum events. Local authorities received dozens of complaints. Police officers and town administrators were unprepared to investigate. Calls were met with confusion. "There's nothing we can measure," one officer noted in a report from 1993. The town council held informal meetings, trying to reassure residents that the phenomenon might be imagined or environmental. But as complaints increased, it became clear that this was not a simple rumor. Journalists began to take notice. The Taos News ran a series of short articles documenting residents' experiences, emphasizing skepticism but acknowledging the growing community concern. One 1992 article quoted a resident, "It's not in my head. You can feel it in the floorboards, in the walls. Sometimes it shakes the windows. You can't sleep. You can't ignore it." By 1994, researchers from New Mexico, Tech, and the University of New Mexico began preliminary investigations. They installed sensitive microphones, electromagnetic detectors, and seismic monitors in multiple homes and public buildings. Despite rigorous testing, instruments picked up no consistent signals. The hum had no clear frequency pattern, no measurable source, and no consistent timing. This inconclusiveness only heightened the tension in the community. Neighbors began to discuss it openly, some attributing it to underground, industrial activity, others to psychological phenomena, and a few even suggesting a previously unknown natural occurrence tied to the desert's unique geology. Division grew subtly within the town. Those who heard the hum daily found themselves isolated from friends, family, and neighbors who could not perceive it. Skeptics began to suggest stress, anxiety, or exaggeration. Those affected felt dismissed, frustrated, and increasingly anxious. One notable account came from the Johnson family, who lived near the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. For months, they documented nights of throbbing vibrations that seemed to originate from no specific direction. Children complained of persistent headaches. The parents reported difficulty concentrating and growing tension between themselves. As each tried to rationalize the phenomenon, their documentation included time-stamped notes, sound level measurements, and descriptions of physical sensations, none of which were corroborated by instruments. By 1995, it was clear the hum was not a localized quirk or short-term anomaly. Reports spanned several neighborhoods, crossing socioeconomic boundaries and affecting a variety of residents, teachers, shopkeepers, students, retirees. The hum became part of daily life for some, a silent, invisible companion shaping routines, sleep patterns, and social interactions. Despite this, the town continued functioning. Schools remained open, businesses operated. Life carried on in public while privately, affected residents navigated confusion, frustration, and skepticism from those around them. The hum had moved beyond mere curiosity. It had become a persistent, divisive, and invisible presence in the lives of those who perceived it. By the late 1990s, the Taos Hum had earned its name in local conversations. It was no longer dismissed as imagination. It was no longer a minor inconvenience. It was an unexplained phenomenon, drawing attention from journalists, researchers, and eventually, national media. The first seeds of scientific investigation were sown, but the mystery remained intact. In Taos, silence had a presence, and that presence was beginning to define the town itself. Scientific investigation. By the mid-1990s, the Taos Hum had evolved from anecdotal curiosity into a phenomenon demanding scientific attention. Researchers arrived, carrying instruments designed to capture the imperceptible, seismic detectors, ultra-sensitive microphones, and magnetometers. Yet for every device, the hum eluded measurement. Dr. Karen Holt, a geophysicist from the University of New Mexico, recalls her first visit. Dr. Holt, archival interview. We walked into a living room where the residents insisted the hum was strongest. I placed a seismograph on the floor, set up microphones, calibrated everything, and the readings were flat, nothing. It was like the sound existed only in perception. Engineers tried placing sensors in basements, attics, and even outside the houses, scanning across frequencies from 20 Hz to 120 Hz, ranges known to affect human perception. Some evenings, residents reported the hum as a growl in the chest or a pressure behind the eyes. Yet instruments remained silent. Cut to lab footage simulation. Technicians adjusting microphones, connecting wires, scanning graphs, frowning at flat lines. Technician 1. We should be seeing something. Even ambient noise shows up on these meters. Technician 2. Maybe it's psychological? The human brain detecting frequencies too subtle for our instruments. Debate intensified. Some scientists, like Dr. Holt, remained skeptical of psychological explanations. Dr. Holt. It's not hallucination. People report measurable physiological responses. Headaches, dizziness, nausea, triggered at the same times across different locations. That's not imagination. Other researchers proposed environmental causes, geothermal activity, low-frequency resonance from nearby highways, industrial machinery in Albuquerque 50 miles south. Each theory was tested, measured, and discarded. Geothermal readings showed no consistent tremors. Highway noise was intermittent and directional, unlike the random persistent hum reports. Industrial vibrations were absent. A team from Sandia National Laboratories installed a grid of accelerometers across the northern part of Taos, spanning 5 square miles. For months, data was collected continuously. Nights with the strongest resident reports yielded no detectable anomalies. Senior engineer Sandia Archival. We can record earthquakes, jet engines, traffic, you name it. But the Taos Hum, nothing. It simply doesn't register on any of our devices. Some scientists turned to electromagnetism. Could stray power lines or magnetic interference explain the phenomenon? Dr. Michael Pearson, an electrical engineer, spent weeks mapping the grid. Dr. Pearson, I walked every street, tested every transformer. Everything was normal, and yet people could pinpoint when the hum was loudest. It didn't align with our measurements, with any physical source we know of. The debate widened. Was the hum psychological or physical? Could it be both? Could it be a type of acoustic signal that only manifests within certain neurological thresholds? The hum refused definition. It existed in the reports, the sensations, the lived experiences, but not in instruments, not in graphs, not in reproducible experiments. Some residents became collaborators, assisting scientists with logs, recordings, and symptom journals. The Johnson family, featured in early reports, hosted repeated nights of monitoring. Researchers documented pulse rates, blood pressure, and subjective perception. Mrs. Johnson, archival. We'd sit in the living room, wires everywhere. My kids were anxious, pacing, and when it came, we could feel it. My husband clutched the table. I held my head. The machines showed nothing. And yet, we all knew it was there. Attempts to replicate the phenomenon under controlled laboratory conditions produced mixed results. Volunteers brought to sound-isolated rooms sometimes reported vibrations that corresponded loosely with Taos schedules. Others reported nothing at all. By the late 1990s, a consensus emerged among scientists. The Taos Hum was real in its effects, but its origin remained elusive. Some hypothesized low-frequency acoustic waves traveling through the Earth's crust, perceptible only to specific auditory thresholds. Others suggested neurological sensitivity, a condition shared by a subset of the population, triggered by unknown environmental factors. Dieter Holt. Every time we thought we had it figured out, it slipped through our hands. It was measurable in people, but not measurable in machines. That is what made it so fascinating and so frustrating. In the labs, in homes, and across the desert, the hum continued to defy explanation. It was simultaneously scientific anomaly, perceptual puzzle, and lived reality. Researchers left as many questions as they had answers. A hum of uncertainty following them into their reports, publications, and lectures. The Taos Hum had crossed the boundary between observation and theory. It had become a test of perception itself, a phenomenon that reminded both scientists and residents of the limits of measurement, the fragility of certainty, and the persistence of the unknown. Human cost. For those who hear it, the hum is more than sound. It is intrusion, persistent, unseen, unavoidable. Take the Johnson family. David Johnson, a high school teacher, and his wife Maria had lived in Taos for nearly 2 decades. Their first encounter with the hum came in 1992 as a faint vibration in their kitchen during an unusually quiet evening. At first they ignored it, but by the following months, it had grown insistent, threading through walls, floors, and even furniture. Maria Johnson, archival interview. It wasn't loud, but it never stopped. You could feel it in your bones. Some nights I would lay awake thinking, is this real or am I losing my mind? Their children, aged 10 and 12, began to complain of headaches, fatigue, and an inability to concentrate in school. Teachers noticed a sudden drop in attention spans. David's sleep fractured into hours, each punctuated by the low vibration he could not escape. Attempts to seek medical guidance were met with polite skepticism. Doctors ruled out conventional causes. No infection, no neurological disorder, no environmental toxin. Doctor, archival quote, 1994. We see a pattern of subjective reports, but our tests show no abnormality. There is no clinical diagnosis to explain this. Medical dismissal only deepened the family's isolation. Friends and neighbors, who did not perceive the hum, began to regard the Johnsons as overly sensitive, even paranoid. Social interactions became strained. The family split their time between public normalcy and private struggle, chronicling every pulse, every sensation, every night without sleep. The human cost extended beyond physical symptoms. Anxiety, frustration, and a profound sense of helplessness took root. Some residents reported irritability and conflict in relationships. Marriages strained, friendships frayed. A quiet tension settled over homes, stretching across dining tables, living rooms, and bedrooms. Others tried coping mechanisms: earplugs, white noise, machines, meditation, soundproofing. Each offered temporary relief, none permanent. The hum adapted, or perhaps the perception did. It persisted in ways both subtle and relentless. Resident 1. I moved my bed to the middle of the room, hoping distance would help. It didn't. It followed me. Every night, every pulse, every vibration. The psychological impact was real. Some individuals developed chronic insomnia, depression, and heightened anxiety. Children, particularly sensitive to environmental cues, experienced persistent fatigue and difficulty focusing. Teachers, already struggling with limited resources, found it impossible to distinguish hum-induced distraction from ordinary behavioral issues. Yet life in Taos continued. Shops opened, schools functioned, streets filled with cars and pedestrians. On the surface, the town appeared normal. Beneath that surface, a silent, unmeasured force threaded through lives, shaping choices, altering routines, and testing human endurance. The Johnsons became amateur chroniclers of the hum. They logged times, described sensations, recorded physical reactions, and even experimented with methods to reduce exposure. Nothing worked consistently. Each night the hum returned, reminding them of its persistence. David Johnson, archival interview. We began to live around it, not with it. Planning evenings, meals, even conversations based on when it might rise. You can't fight it, you can only endure. By the late 1990s, a pattern had emerged across affected households. The hum was selective, intrusive, and persistent. It exacted a quiet toll on those who perceived it, physical, emotional, and social. Families became chroniclers of the inexplicable. Friends became skeptics. Sleep became a battlefield. Life, for some, became defined by a sound that could not be measured, contained or explained. This is the human cost of the Taos Hum. Not destruction in flames, not visible decay, but a subtle, persistent intrusion that alters perception, strains relationships, and reshapes daily life in ways that science could observe but never fully explain. In Taos, the hum is not just heard, it is lived, and for those who live with it, normalcy is forever redefined. The psychological impact was real. Some individuals developed chronic insomnia, depression, and heightened anxiety. Children, particularly sensitive to environmental cues, experienced persistent fatigue and difficulty focusing. Teachers, already struggling with limited resources, found it impossible to distinguish hum-induced distraction from ordinary behavioral issues. Yet life in Taos continued. Shops opened, schools functioned, streets filled with cars and pedestrians. On the surface, the town appeared normal. Beneath that surface, a silent, unmeasured force threaded through lives, shaping choices, altering routines, and testing human endurance. The Johnsons became amateur chroniclers of the hum. They logged times, described sensations, recorded physical reactions, and even experimented with methods to reduce exposure. Nothing worked consistently. Each night the hum returned, reminding them of its persistence. David Johnson, archival interview. We began to live around it, not with it. Planning evenings, meals, even conversations based on when it might rise. You can't fight it, you can only endure. By the late 1990s, a pattern had emerged across affected households. The hum was selective, intrusive, and persistent. It exacted a quiet toll on those who perceived it, physical, emotional, and social. Families became chroniclers of the inexplicable. Friends became skeptics. Sleep became a battlefield. Life, for some, became defined by a sound that could not be measured, contained or explained. This is the human cost of the Taos Hum. Not destruction in flames, not visible decay, but a subtle, persistent intrusion that alters perception, strains relationships, and reshapes daily life in ways that science could observe but never fully explain. In Taos, the hum is not just heard, it is lived, and for those who live with it, normalcy is forever redefined. A global pattern. Taos is not alone. By the late 1990s, reports of similar low-frequency hums emerged across the globe. In Windsor, Ontario, residents described a persistent vibration that disturbed sleep and daily life. In Bristol, England, a comparable hum puzzled both engineers and psychologists. In Kokomo, Indiana, complaints echoed eerily similar experiences. A low, almost imperceptible sound that caused headaches, fatigue, and tension among those sensitive to it. Scientists were intrigued. Could these be unrelated, coincidental phenomena? Or did they hint at a larger, global pattern, an acoustic mystery threading through towns far apart, linked not by geography but by human perception? Dr. Michael Pearson, archival interview, electrical engineer. When I first heard about Windsor and Bristol, I thought it was anecdotal. But the consistency of reports, the timing, the symptoms, the selectivity, it made me reconsider. There is something being perceived that we cannot measure. That to me is fascinating. Researchers traveled internationally, comparing data, methodologies, and resident reports. They discovered striking similarities. Perceptual selectivity. Only a small fraction of the population in each town could hear the hum. Variable timing. The hum was inconsistent, appearing sporadically, often stronger at night or in quiet spaces. Physiological impact, headaches, fatigue, and sleep disruption were common among those affected. Yet there were differences too. The Windsor hum, for instance, was more easily localized near industrial zones, whereas the Taos hum defied geographic anchoring. Bristol's reports suggested subtle seasonal variation, linked perhaps to weather patterns or underground geological activity. Kokomo's hum was described as pulsating, while Taos residents spoke of continuous low-frequency vibration. Dr. Karen Holt, archival. Each hum had its own signature, yet the human experience was remarkably similar. The physiological responses, the sleep disruption, the psychological strain, these were universal. Media coverage of these phenomena was often skeptical, sometimes dismissive. National newspapers labeled them urban legends or psychological anomalies. Skeptics argued that confirmation bias, tinnitus, or stress explained the reported effects. Public debate emerged. Were these people imagining what they wanted to hear? Were their experiences exaggerated or misattributed? Resident Windsor archival. They told me it was in my head. They said we were making it up. But when my neighbors described exactly the same thing, I knew it wasn't just me. Attempts to standardize measurements across locations proved frustratingly inconsistent. Equipment that captured faint vibrations in Bristol registered nothing in Taos. Windsor's magnetic surveys detected anomalies that could not be replicated elsewhere. Even the most rigorous scientific investigations, peer-reviewed studies, university-led projects, government inquiries, could only confirm effect without origin. Despite these failures, researchers began to suspect a larger, yet undefined phenomenon. Low-frequency acoustic waves, unidentified seismic microactivity, neurological hypersensitivity triggered by environmental conditions. Each theory offered pieces but no complete explanation. What emerged instead was a pattern of human experience. Across continents and decades, those affected shared a common narrative of perception, disruption, and frustration. They developed personal strategies, white noise machines, relocation, meditation, but none consistently mitigated the hum. And for some, the hum became a defining element of life. Communities were subtly reshaped by an invisible force, public spaces quieter than before, social interactions tinged with skepticism, a shared but isolating experience of a sound that existed in perception alone. The global pattern revealed something unsettling. This was not an isolated quirk. It was a recurring phenomenon that challenged assumptions about the relationship between environment, perception, and science. A sound or experience that could exist without trace, yet impose real consequences on life. The Taos hum was no longer just Taos. It was a lens into the limitations of measurement, the fragility of certainty, and the persistence of mystery in a world otherwise cataloged and explained. The unresolved ending. The hum continues. No instruments, no charts, no experiments have fully captured it. It exists at the edges of perception, threading through homes, streets, and minds in ways science struggles to define. It is simultaneously real and elusive, documented yet invisible, measured yet unmeasurable. Residents of Taos speak of it quietly now, not as a curiosity but as a fixture of daily life. Some have moved away, seeking silence that does not exist. Others remain, accepting the hum as part of their environment. A subtle, persistent companion. Families adapt, children grow up with it, and life continues above ground. While below, in vibration and perception, the town pulses to an invisible rhythm. Globally, the pattern remains. Windsor, Bristol, Kokomo, communities separated by continents share an uncanny experience, defying attempts to reduce it to geology, machinery, or psychology alone. Researchers debate endlessly, yet the phenomenon continues to resist definition. Each investigation brings answers about context and effect, but not origin. Each explanation opens new questions. What is real? What is perception? Where do limits of human awareness intersect with the unexplained? In this uncertainty lies the power of the hum. Not in revelation, but in the quiet tension it imposes. A sound, a perception, a lived experience that challenges certainty. Something that exists in a space between the world we can measure and the world we feel. Some nights, when the desert is still and the wind has died, the hum is perceptible again. A low vibration, threading through floors, walls, and air. Those who can hear it pause, listening. There is no answer, no explanation, no closure. Only awareness, only presence. And perhaps that is the point. The Taos hum teaches patience with uncertainty, humility before perception, and attentiveness to phenomena that defy understanding. It is a reminder that not all truths are accessible, not all patterns explainable, and not all experiences universally shared. The story ends not with resolution, but with continuation. The hum persists, life goes on, and the mystery remains. In Taos, the ordinary is never truly silent.